Are live.
Alrighty, folks, welcome to another episode of the Big Blues Podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the New York Giants have fired now former head coach Joe Judge, folks. This is great news, everybody. This is awesome news. I'm clapping it up. It's doing some tech stuff, I guess. It's clap it up. Woo!
It's great news.
This is just, honestly, didn't expect to get this today. I was thinking we hire a GM, the GM decides, but look at the Giants making competent organizational decisions. For once, I feel like this is the best day to be a Giants fan. This is the best day to be a Giants fan, Matt, since before the boat picture happened.
I was gonna say this is one of the best days in the last 5 years, right?
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, since before the boat picture. Like I will die on that hill. Since before the boat picture, this is the best day in Giants history. So it's been over 5 years since that's happened. To put things into perspective. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, man. It's been a wild ride, but we did it. Joe Judge is gone. Dave Gettleman is gone. And the Giants can finally start a new era of football. It's a brand new era. It's a white blank page. There's a lot of stuff we got to fix. There's a lot of stuff we've got to get better at. But for the first time in 5 years, we can sit here and say the organization seems ready to fix them.
And you know what, Dan? As kind of just as we're going to go through and we're going to talk about this, right? It's not just that, right? It's a clean slate. It's the fact that the Giants actually seem like they want to fix them. Like we have a GM search going on that's casting a wide net, and they also announced
8 names.
Yep, but they also announced that with the firing of Joe Judge, that the GM will lead the head coach search, not John Mara, not Steve Tisch. Obviously, they're going to have input, right? They're the owners of the team.
Yeah, of course.
But it sounds like this is going to be hire a GM who's going to hire a coach. This is what we've wanted since they fired Reese and McAdoo.
Right. For years, Matt. I mean, we've wanted this for years. So, I couldn't be happier. At this moment, I'm thrilled. I was at Target. Dylan, our contributor Dylan, shout out Dylan, text me. He's like, dude, Dan. And I was shocked. I was not expecting this news today. So I'm thrilled. This is great. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about next steps. But honestly, Matt, I really thought we were going to be saddled with Joe Judge until at least next week. But possibly, like I was talking myself into another year of it. Not for me to buy in, but just kind of to accept the fact that I thought there was going to be another year of Joe Judge.
We kept on, and I say we, but particularly me, I was one making these posts. We kept on emphasizing the fact that, they were going to continue to meet, and unless they didn't see eye to eye on things, they were going to let the GM decide. Everyone jumped the gun yesterday. There were multiple YouTube videos, podcasts, everything out. Joe Judge is staying. We knew we knew this wasn't finalized. It's not it was never finalized. It was obviously got to a point, though, where the Giants, who at this point are setting up interviews, right? We know that they're interviewing Joe Schoen tomorrow. They're interviewing, I think, one of the Arizona Cardinals candidates on Thursday. I think they started talking to these GM candidates, and these GM candidates told them, we do not want Joe Judge. And
and good on them.
Good on them. I think that's what happened. I think that's why we're seeing things change. But I mean, it's goodbye. This is it's the start of something brand new. It
is. And when I mean it's brand new, I mean at this point, Matt, it's almost like this team's an expansion team. Truly, with just how the roster is, it's not going to get. I'm not saying 2022 is going to be the best football you're ever going to see in the world. And I think anybody who puts those expectations out there is ludicrous. But this is where you close the chapter, the old chapter. It was a really dysfunctional 5 years because I think the Giants teams we grew up watching, we're both in our 20s, right? So we grew up with a winning team for the most part. And the last 5 years has just basically spat on our childhood, spat on a lot of people's perception of this team. But now that chapter's closed, it is what it is. It happened. But if John Mara and Steve Tisch get this general manager hire right, and the GM gets the coaching hire right, this thing could turn around. It could actually turn around, and we could actually now really start a true new era.
I want to preface this by saying, guys, it could turn around quickly. Like, this could be a competitive football team, in 2 seasons. Like, realistically, we don't know what moves these guys are going to make, so we don't know what the timeline is going to be. But it's realistic that this team is competitive in 2023, and that they are like an actual Super Bowl contender by 2024. I know that's hard to believe because Dave Gettleman wanted 10 years to do this, but in the NFL, you can turn things around quickly. You could turn things around quickly.
You can, and you know what? Like, look at the Bengals. They're a prime example. They get their quarterback, all right? Joe Burrow, probably top 5 quarterback in the league right now. I'd make the argument. Maybe some people wouldn't. I sure would. They get the quarterback. The Bengals don't have a good line, yet they've made it work because they have a good quarterback. They get a star playmaker in Chase. The defense is good enough. They got Zach Taylor's done a pretty good job as coach, I feel like, this year. And all of a sudden, they went from the basement 2 years ago to now they're legitimate playoff contenders. They're probably not going to win the Super Bowl this year. But the Bengals, if you look kind of at that timeline, right, last year wasn't great. They still got the 5th pick. Playoff team this year. Next year, maybe Super Bowl contenders. And I think that's kind of the timeline, right, that the Giants could be looking at here. Best case scenario. But I don't think at this point, we'll ever get worse than Dave Gettleman. Knock on wood.
Guys, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to be as bad as the Giants were over the last 5 years, but the 4 years with Dave Gettleman. It is an actual challenge. It's a challenge to only score 17 points a game last year, and then it was 14-something, 14.6, whatever it was this year. Mm-hmm. It is a challenge to be that bad, especially in today's NFL where teams score points. I mean, it's difficult to be as bad as the Giants were over the last 4 years. It takes a lot of incompetence to be that way. And, while we sit here and we're celebrating and be happy, obviously, the team's not going to turn around to be great next year. It's going to take time, but this is exactly
what we needed. We're going to give it time.
Exactly.
And we're going to give it time this time. I think we're going to, Matt, why don't we say that unless things completely go off the rails here, we're going to give it at least 2 years before we start really going in.
It's knowing that next year, and I think this is what a lot of fans need to be prepared for, is that next year might get uglier than it was. I don't think the team. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I don't think the team will play as bad as they were at the end of this year, but that doesn't necessarily mean it won't be uglier record-wise. It might get a little bit uglier before things completely turn around. Although, again, they won 4 games. How much uglier can it get?
Yeah,
it might stay this ugly.
I don't think
it might stay this ugly for another year. Yeah. But realize that
I think
a new GM has to come in and build. I mean, it's Hurricane Dave came in, knocked down what was once a beautiful mansion, and the foundation was broken. And I mean, this is a complete upheaval and build a brand new foundation job.
This is a new build. This is get out all the old parts. So now obviously there's a ton of questions with Joe Judge out of the picture. We'll have plenty of time to talk about guys like Daniel Jones, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about guys like Saquon Barkley. I don't want to necessarily go down that rabbit hole now. But obviously, Matt, the Giants need a new head coach. And I've got a short list of guys who I would love. And I'm curious to hear guys who you would love, Matt, if that works.
I 100%. I think we should go through a list. I think it's very important to remember that this list, like it's hard to make a head coaching list without the GM. Now that we know the GM is making this hire,
right? And we also, and I want to also preface this by saying, Matt, I do not know, right? I do not know if any of these guys will actually be chosen. These are just guys who I like the sound of personally.
I think that's a good way I think it's a good way to start the list by saying,
because we don't know. We don't have any insight yet. Anybody saying that they have insight is lying, because the GM, it sounds like the GM is going to be the one making the decision. We don't have a GM.
And not only that, but Joe Judge has been fired for an hour at this point. So if anyone has insight on who the With that being said, Dan, let's go over a short list of guys that we would like. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'll give you my number one. This is the pipe dream candidate. Can we call this the pipe dream candidate?
Sure.
Yeah, I think yours is the same. Jim Harbaugh.
So that's actually not my number one.
Okay. Jim Harbaugh is my number one. Listen, he turned the 49ers around. I don't think Jim Harbaugh will ever have a better season at Michigan. Sorry, Michigan fans. I know there's some Giants fans who are Michigan fans. I have a lot of friends who are Michigan fans. I don't think Jim Harbaugh will ever have a better season at Michigan. I think he should quit while he's ahead and rebuild the Giants. He's 57. He doesn't have the rest of his life to come and win a Super Bowl, but he could really solidify his legacy in football by getting a Super Bowl with the New York Giants. And that's my pitch to him. I'd love it if Jim Harbaugh came to coach the Giants.
I really like Jim Harbaugh. He would definitely be in the. I think part of the reason why he's not on my list is I don't think it's realistic. The Giants want to find the
that's
GM.
I said that's my pipe dream, best case scenario. Yeah,
the Giants want to find the GM and then let the GM hire the coach. Obviously, Harbaugh would be the opposite. Harbaugh, anywhere he goes, he's going to want full control over the roster, full say over the roster, and you're going to have a GM that complements him. I would not. You believe me when I say I would not be upset if they hired Jim Harbaugh. I would very much like to hire.
Yeah.
You saw what he did with San Francisco in the early 2010s was great. They did an excellent job. They were really competent for 4 years. The issue is that he is difficult to work with. He tends to burn people out very quickly. Those types of things. I mean, without a question, that's what comes with Jim Harbaugh. So I would not be upset. Jim Harbaugh's not my number one. Would not be upset but not be upset. He was to hire. My number one, Dan, I think is probably your number two, and it's Doug Peterson.
Let's hear it. Yeah, right. That's my number two. Yeah,
it's Doug Peterson.
100%.
There's not many chances where you have a former Super Bowl winning head coach available to go and grab someone that's. Everywhere he's gone, he's seen success. He was the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs under Andy Reid. Very good there. Obviously went to Philadelphia. You saw what he did with Carson Wentz. Let's be real. Carson Wentz is not that good at football. He had some great seasons. You saw what he did with Nick Foles.
Carson Wentz would have been the MVP in 2017 if he did not blow his knee out.
Yep, 100%. Just 100%. Everywhere he's gone, he's found success. I personally think that the Eagles made the wrong decision choosing Howie Roseman, who's now survived, he's on his fourth head coach, over Doug Peterson. Personal opinion, thought that was a bad decision by the Eagles. It's why the Eagles are every year the Eagles are in the playoff race, but they're never actually a playoff team. Or they're if they are a playoff team, it's like this year where they're a 9-win team.
They're gonna lose by 3 touchdowns on Sunday to Tampa.
Yeah, so I really like Doug Peterson. He's my top candidate. I think he's a very interesting candidate with Ryan Poles, who is in my top 2 in terms of GM candidates as well. I think that would be an excellent combo, a potential Super Bowl winning combo. Doug Peterson, again, it's hard to beat a guy who already has a ring. He can get there because he's gotten there.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, listen, I'm not saying his entire tenure in Philadelphia was super pretty. But he won a Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl there.
3 out of 5 seasons, and that was with a rookie quarterback, on a rookie contract. 3 out of 5 seasons, they were a playoff team.
And he won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. Yeah, that's pretty good. Matt, I'm going to give you another name here. This is a guy who I love. I don't necessarily think this will be the hire. Personally, I think the Giants are going to look for somebody with experience. Because just the last 2 first-time head coaches they've hired has been a train wreck. But I'll give you one who I think will be good. Byron Leftwich, Tampa Bay Bucs offense.
Okay. Yep. Brian Leftwich is also on my list of coaches that I really, really, really like. You kind of... Bruce Arians is a very good football coach. I just want to go ahead and make that very clear. Bruce Arians is
top notch.
No. But my point is, he loves Byron Leftwich. He hypes him up like no one's business. Byron, he even sits there and says, Byron Leftwich is the head coach of the offense. He controls the offense.
Which, I'm sure Arians does some stuff for it, obviously. But Byron Leftwich, I mean, that offense in Tampa has been probably the most prolific offense in the league for the last 2 years.
Obviously, anytime you hire a Tom Brady offensive coordinator, you run the risk of how much of this is Tom Brady and how much of this is Byron Leftwich. Obviously, the talent there is insane on offense, but when you look around the league and you sit here and say, what coaches do I trust developing a young quarterback? I mean, no one knows what it's like to be a young quarterback unless you were one. Byron Leftwich was one, 10-year, NFL quarterback. I really like Leftwich too. He's a guy where if the Giants hired him, I'd probably be doing cartwheels.
Yep, I would really like that hire, Matt. Do you have another name?
I do. So again,
Let's hear it.
We're dipping back into the offensive coaches that are young, that don't have head coaching experience.
I think I know who you're going to say.
And it's Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator Kellen Moore.
Yeah, yeah. I would do cartwheels. I'd do backflips if Kellen Moore became the Giants coach.
Can we talk about Kellen Moore for a second, Dan? In the sense that he is the next Sean McVay. I know that everyone's looking for the next Sean McVay. He's been the offensive coordinator in Dallas for 3 seasons. Okay, in 2019, a healthy Dak all year, they were first in yards and 6th in points. Okay, in 2020, they had Dak for 4.5 games, something like that. Does that sound about right?
It was right. It was he
4 or 5
basically
games.
Got hurt week 5 against the Giants. He ripped his leg in half. Right?
Yep. So 14th in yards, 17th in points. Starting Andy Dalton. Did Cooper Rush start a game?
Cooper Rush, Matt, remember Ben DiNucci played a game?
Yeah, Ben DiNucci. Again,
Ben DiNucci.
They were an average offense without their starting quarterback. That's really hard. This year, they had Dak every game but one. I think Dak missed a game because he had the hip injury. They were first in yards.
He missed one game, yeah.
First in yards, first in points. I mean, there's just the track record's just amazing. You look at that and the fact that he's 33 years old, you sit here and say, can Kellen Moore be my coach for the next 20 years? Maybe even longer, because he's only 33 years old.
Yeah. Yep. He's a young buck, man. And yeah, you're right. He literally is the next Sean McVay. I completely agree. I would have to say, Matt, I feel like, do we have the same top 4? Is that your top 4?
That's probably my top 4.
That's my top 4. And dude, do we share? Sometimes I know we're brothers, but I feel like sometimes we do share a brain. That was absolutely my top 4.
This is the cartwheel group. There are other coaches that I'd be happy with. I wouldn't be upset with. But these are the coaches where you hire one of these 4, I am doing a cartwheel. I'm loving every minute of it. I'm assuming you're the same way. These are
Yep,
this is
absolutely.
A group above the rest. I mean, again, we could talk about.
For me, though, I would say it's tiered. Though for me, it's Harbaugh, Peterson is my first tier. I would say Moore and Leftwich would be my middle tier, or not my middle tier, but also my high tier. But kind of if Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, my Joe Burrow. You know what I'm saying? If that makes any sense in terms of comparing it.
I do want to talk about some of the other candidates because I think there's going to be some that are just going to naturally come up based on the GM search, and then there's going to be some that are just going to come up because I expect the Giants to interview them in some sort of capacity. Dan, Jim Caldwell, how do you feel? If I told you that Jim Caldwell, okay, so we're in the same boat on that, right?
No, and listen, Jim Caldwell's a good coach, but isn't he 70 years old? He's 66.
He's 66.
He's old. And I just don't think bringing in an old – this team needs somebody who's going to excite them. And honestly, I think part of my take always makes this joke, but they always say that Jim Caldwell looks like he's dead on the sidelines every week. He looks like he's dead.
Okay, so Jim Caldwell, we're both in agreement there. We don't have to dive further into that. We're both in agreement there.
Nope.
Brian Flores. Because, again, the Giants, there's a solid chance the Giants are going to look for an experienced hire. Brian Flores.
Yeah, and here's the pros and cons with Brian Flores. I think Brian Flores did a lot with a little in Miami, right?
I agree.
I think he would have still been the head coach there if he believed in Tua. Clearly, he does not believe in Tua.
Well, right? I also agree.
I think his defenses speak for themselves. He's a very good defensive coach, but if you're bringing in Flores, you would have to tell me who the coordinator on offense is going to be. Like, he's got to maybe bring in like a Joe Brady, right, to be the coordinator. Somebody who, and I know Brady got fired. I'm not going to count what happened in Carolina. You can't win with Sam Darnold and Cam Newton and P.J. Walker and Matt Rule's stupid rotation that he was doing. So there's a lot to like, though, about Brian Flores. But at the same time, he started 1-7 this year, and that's pretty bad. A lot of Dolphins fans I talked to are happy he's fired.
Okay.
I did some digging yesterday.
Flores is someone who, if the Giants hired, I'd say, okay, we're going to give him a chance. But
Yep,
I'm not.
Me too.
Not over the moon.
Plus, New Yorker, right? Like, he's a New Yorker. The story would be good. I think he's from Brownsville, New York, which is in Brooklyn, I believe. So yeah. Okay.
So again, figuring that they're going to think about, like, old experienced coaches, or older, more experienced coaches, guys that have had, the jobs before. Those are the two guys that I think that's not Jim Harbaugh that will be the experienced guys the Giants will look into.
I'll throw out one more name, and I don't think I'd like this hire particularly, but Todd Bowles.
Okay. See, I'm not sure if Todd Bowles would be on the Giants' radar. I don't know if they'd want to pull him back into the New York market. I mean, he crashed and burned here.
That's true. He did crash and burn in New York.
Some people just aren't built for New York, and that's okay.
No. Todd Bowles is the perfect defensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And you know what? Maybe he needs to go be the head coach of a smaller market team. That's fine. Okay, so those are your potential experienced hires. If the Giants if the next Giants GM chooses to go in that route.
Yeah.
I want to talk about some coordinators. Let's go offense, then defense. Just because I think his name's going to come up when the Giants interview.
So you're saying coordinators for the head coaching search?
I'm saying current coordinators that could become the head coach.
Right. Okay. All right. Just making sure.
Yep. I think his name's going to come up quite a bit when Ryan pulls interviews, and that's Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, and he's a guy I'd give him a chance.
So we're in the same region.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not saying I'd be doing cartwheels for him. I don't like. It's the same thing as maybe Byron Leftwich, and maybe I like what I see out of Byron Leftwich a little bit more, maybe. But it's like he's Patrick Mahomes' OC. But I mean, he's due. Eric Bieniemy's due to get a chance.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think the one thing that helps Byron Leftwich is the fact that he played in the NFL for a decade as a quarterback. So there is, in terms of, because remember, whoever you hire as the next head coach, whether you believe in Daniel Jones or not, let's be real, Daniel Jones is not the guy that's going to be the quarterback for the future. But even if you believe in Daniel Jones and you think Daniel Jones is the guy for the future, again, it's going to be a rookie quarterback down the road or someone else. That guy needs to be able to, basically raise up a quarterback.
And spoiler alert, it's not going to be Daniel Jones.
It's not.
Daniel Jones might play next year, and that I think he's done. They're not picking up his fifth year. He's going to be done.
I agree, it's not. So I think we're in the same place with Eric Bieniemy. Not mad, not particularly loving it.
Yeah,
we'd be fine.
I'll give him a chance, and you know what? I'll crack a smile. I'll crack a smile for what it's worth.
All right.
I don't think he'll be a bad coach. Very rarely, Matt. I'm not saying all of Andy Reid's coaches are good, but how many of them have really crashed and burned? And I'm sure there's one that somebody's gonna say in the comments.
Matt Nagy.
No. Matt, but he made two plays.
I guess you could say he didn't crash and burn, but
I wouldn't say crash and burn. I would say it more fizzled out.
I think that's fair.
The flame stopped getting air, oxygen.
Again, going back to the potential GMs where you can kind of draw. I do want to preface this because I think it's very easy to say this guy's coming from this team and this guy they have this offensive coordinator. Let's draw a straight line. That's not always how it works. But I'm gonna go ahead and draw that straight line. Joe Schoen, Brian DeBull.
Yeah, and again, I would not riot.
I don't particularly love the idea of Brian DeBull. If you look at where what he's done in other places, like in Cleveland, before Josh Allen arrived in Buffalo, his offenses were bad. They were average to bad, and then suddenly Josh Allen steps in, and the guy is a head coaching candidate. It seemed like we just talked about Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes with Bieniemy and Byron Leftwich. Yeah. Brian the Bull is that same thing with Josh Allen. It's except really, if we're being honest, probably less of a track record, at least than like Eric Bieniemy. Brian Leftwich is about the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you a name. Nathaniel Hackett.
That's actually, you read my mind. So talk about Sherrod Brain. Yeah. You read my mind. Nathaniel Hackett's never even been a play caller.
Oh, that's tough.
That's a tough sell, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Tough sell.
That's tough.
Matt LaFleur calls the plays in Green Bay.
I'll say this: everybody laughed at the Matt LaFleur hire last year, or not last year. What was it? 3 years ago.
Yep. Great.
You talk about a slam dunk hire.
Yep.
You think he's a slam freaking dunk hire? But yeah. If he hasn't played, no. If he hasn't called plays, that's a no for me.
Okay. This is my dark horse, Dan. This is my dark horse candidate. Were you in? We have a chat. We interact with you guys. Honestly, the Giants chat that we have, it's my favorite chat that I have that I talk with people in, because I love all of you guys that are in there, and we have a ton of fun talking about football. Everyone in there is a diehard Giants fan. So if any of you guys are watching from there, I love you guys. But I brought this up earlier. I don't know. We both worked all day.
I've not really checked my messages all day.
So this is going to be a shocker to you, but I want you to hear me out. Okay, this is my dark horse head coaching candidate. Again, not a cartwheel guy, but a guy where I'm like, this is interesting. I kind of like it. It's Chargers offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi. Now, hear me out here. He was the offensive coordinator in Detroit. Was it great? No. Was it bad? No. Okay? After Detroit, he got let go with an entire coaching staff. It might have actually been that Jim Caldwell staff. He was with Sean Payton for He was with Sean Payton for 4 years as a quarterbacks coach in New Orleans. So you mean to tell? So he got us some experience as an OC, didn't work out, left, get some really nice experience with Sean Payton and Drew Brees. Takes over LA this year. And I mean, obviously, yes, he has Justin Herbert, but what that offense has done with Justin Herbert in his second year, you have to give the guy some credit.
Yeah, I would agree. He's relatively young. He's only 50. He's got a pretty good resume. He was a quarterbacks coach, Matt, in New Orleans on and off for the span of, I mean, he went from Saints quarterbacks coach from 09 to 13, Lions 14 and 15, Saints from 16 to 20.
Yep.
That's a pretty good resume. I mean, they always had top five. Not great, they had Drew Brees, but he always had top five quarterback plays. So that's an interesting one. Again, I don't think that's a cartwheels guy, but I think that's I could get behind it.
And I actually think that this could be the guy where John Mara's like, we missed out on Vince Lombardi. Let's grab his grandson. I think that's
Is it really Vince Lombardi's grandson?
100% it is. Yep.
I did not know Lombardi.
That. So again,
he's already got connections to the Giants organization.
Not a cartwheel guy. But you have to sit here and say what he did with the Chargers here was very impressive. And he's not someone who I think is going to get very many interviews. He's probably not going to get a head coaching job this year. But keep an eye. If you're an NFL fan, you can keep an eye on it, because I think there's a chance he will get a head coaching job in the next couple of years. Defensive guys. Yep. So I think that you hire the best head coach possible, right? The head coach needs to be able to coach the offense and the defense. But in today's NFL, we're in agreement, right, that unless the defensive coach has a strong offensive background, philosophy, whatever you might want to call it,
or coordinator, or offensive coordinator.
Well, here's the thing about hiring a strong offensive coordinator. That guy's going to become a head coach. He'll
become a head coach, right?
So my philosophy is I lean offense because offense is more important in today's NFL than defense is. But obviously, again, you hire the best head coach, and there are a lot of defensive head coaches that are good at offense as well. You see it around the league. Are you in agreement with that? You also lean
100%.
offense.
I want an offensive head coach. I'll say that right now. Granted, there's a couple, like, again, if it's Flores, I won't riot. If there's a couple defensive guys, I won't riot. But this is an offensive league. Go get a good offensive coach. Don't get Pat Shermer. Don't get Ben McAdoo. Go get a good offensive coach.
So let's start talking about potential current defensive coordinators that could become the next Giants head coach. I'm going to start with a guy who he's sitting at home now, so you can go and interview him. But talk about great defenses. The Colts have had a great defense for the last couple of years. Matt Eberflus, I think I probably butchered his name.
Yep, Eberflus. Yeah,
he's a
pretty. Yeah, they like him. They like him. A lot of people like him. Kind of a dark horse candidate, but could get some looks.
I don't actually think he's a dark horse candidate. I think he's getting quite a bit of requests for interviews. I think there's a good chance that he's hired in this cycle. I know the Bears requested to interview him. Jacksonville did a last week. I'm not sure if he's hit Denver's list yet, but okay. So we're in the same boat. Where again, not a cartwheel guy. I'd be happy with that though.
Okay.
He's indirectly coming from that Andy Reid tree in a way.
Right, because it's that Frank Reich, Doug Peterson tree, right? Mm-hmm.
This is the name that I'm afraid of, and I could be totally wrong, but this is the name that I'm afraid of that I think is going to be brought up quite a bit for the Giants. I do not want this guy as the head coach, just based off what I know. Again, it's hard. We're not in the meeting rooms. I do not want Wink Martindale as the next Giants head coach.
Yeah, hell to the no.
But
that is one for me. That when I mean a hell to the no. You know that song? Yeah, it's like hell to the no, no. That song, that is no.
I do think that he's an older guy in the league.
Nope.
I think there's a chance that he gets the potential nod, and he's probably gonna get an interview. But he's a name where
he goes by Wink.
Yes, he does. It's Don Martindale.
He literally goes by Wink.
That's
the biggest red flag. That's not a football guy.
Joe Judge got fired, and I'm looking and I'm making posts, trying to get content out to you guys, and the amount of I probably saw Wink Martindale to the Giants from just random people on Twitter, like random, like not your big boy beat writers, but some of the smaller beat writers, probably 3 or 4 times, and I was like, I guess this is happening. Like people are going to start trying to force this narrative. So
no, and listen. Mainly no. You talk about an idiot. He clearly 3 weeks ago when he made that comment about Joe Burrow not putting on a gold jacket, and then Burrow goes and throws 525 yards. That just proves to me right there he's not a head coach. He's not head coaching material. The fact that you'd say that to a division rival who you're going to be stuck seeing for the next 10 to 15 years as a team, he just very tone deaf. And I think the Giants have had enough tone deaf head coaches. We need to get somebody who's smart.
So I'm going to say one more name, and it's just I know your answer to this. You know my answer to this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Go ahead and say it.
I'm going to say this name just because I know it's going to be said by a bunch of fans that don't understand how this works. Patrick Grimm.
Mm-hmm. Can you say that again? I cannot hear you.
Patrick Grimm.
I believe it or not, I don't think they should do it. I don't like it, but you could do worse. I wouldn't be thrilled.
It's a no.
And here's the thing,
from me.
Patrick Graham, I'd like to see him stay on as DC. If they want to keep him as DC, that's fine. If the new coach comes on and says you can stay as DC, I wouldn't care. But unfortunately, I think for Patrick Graham, he hitched his buggy to the wrong horse. Isn't that the old expression?
I don't think I don't think. I was going to say, I agree with you. Yes, he did hitch his buggy to the wrong horse. Granted, the other buggy he was hitched onto before this one also got fired in Brian Flores.
Right.
Patrick Graham's a great defensive coordinator. I think if the Giants were a better offense and a better team, and he was on a better staff, he actually probably would be getting looked at as a head coaching candidate by other teams. I didn't
realize he was only 42. He looks like he's about 56.
Yep. I just think that and he's a smart guy. He went to Yale, didn't he? Real smart guy.
I believe he did go to Yale. Yep.
Real smart guy. I just think that, he's going to latch on somewhere as a defensive coordinator, and there's a solid chance in 2-3 years he is a head coach somewhere. I just don't think it can be here.
And we'll root for him the whole way.
Yeah. No problem with Patrick Graham. I just want to
done.
I want to preface this.
I don't necessarily say I hope, but if the Giants if the new coach wants to keep him on as coordinator, I would not care. That would be the one Joe Judge holdover I'd be fine with.
Yeah, I mean, I would as well. I think, again, though, I don't want the Giants to try to finagle it to make him stay or anything like that.
Yeah. No. It has to be the new coach's decision.
Yep. Has to be the new coach's decision. I don't know about you, Dan, but I think I'm down to, if you guys have questions, you want to send them in. I don't know about your...
Yeah, I'll answer.
Does your Facebook live chat stay up to date, Dan? Mine's never up to date. I always have to back out and jump back in. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah, no, I keep getting stuff here. Name, give us some names we missed that you guys might be curious about that you didn't hear us say. Leslie Frazier, that's a no for me, dog. I'll give you a couple no's. Dan Quinn, that would be a no.
Yep.
A hard no.
And Dan Quinn's going to be really popular in this, for whatever reason, in this candidate search.
Do you remember what he did in the Super Bowl? That's all I'm going to say.
I'll just
I'm just going through here.
Oh wow, okay. So it sounds like this is interesting. Because this might make the Broncos less attractive. It sounds like the Broncos are getting closer to being sold. And people have been talking about them potentially being sold this spring.
Yeah.
They just won a pretty big court battle according to Ian Rappaport. That's big for the Giants because if you're remember what happened with Doug Marrone in Buffalo. New ownership came in.
Yeah.
They got rid of him. They made the right decision getting rid of him, but they got rid of him. That can make things a little less attractive for a potential head
so we had a question,
candidate.
Matt. So who's your top candidates for both GM and head coach? So you want to maybe give our top 3 for each one.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, the Giants have not requested to interview this man yet, but my number 1 is Ed Dodds.
Yeah, same. And Jordy said, why are the Giants not interviewing Ed Dodds? I don't know. Maybe he privately said he wouldn't take the job, so they're not going to even bark up that tree.
Great news, Dan. Great news. Let's add a 9th candidate to the GM list. This is actually probably a guy that might sneak into my top 3. Joe Hortz.
Who?
Hortz. Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, who's...
Director.
I was gonna say, yep. He's like is he kind of the right hand up there now?
He basically is now with Ozzie Newsome stepping down.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the Ravens, I really like their front office. I think it's a model front office in the NFL.
Yep, it
has been
agree.
Since Ozzie. It's been a model since Ozzie was there. Ozzie Newsome. So yeah.
So he's now also interviewing for the Giants job. I'm wondering, Dan. If we're gonna, because let's be real. The Giants have casted a wide net. There have been a couple in the wide net where you're like, okay, like I get you're just trying to see what's out there. I wonder now with because Joe Hortz is a guy who a lot of people expected him to be very popular in this this cycle. I wonder now with Judge being fired, if some of these other guys are like, yeah, we'll actually interview with you now.
Yeah, maybe.
That's interesting to me. But add him to the list. I'm going to be honest with you, Dan. So Ed Dodds would be my number 1. If we're just going to stick it to the guys that the Giants have requested to interview, then my number 1 is going to be Joe Schoen from Buffalo. My assistant GM there. My number 2 is Ryan Poles. And then my number 3 actually now is Joe Hortz. Like he was a guy I really liked as a candidate before we knew that, you know, when we were talking about Gettleman being fired in like October.
Yeah, for sure. I would say I would agree on my top 2, and I don't necessarily know if I really have a 3, like a really big 3 that I want to get behind for general manager. But I would say Schoen and for me, Schoen and Poles are my top 2 right now. And listen, I'm going to give anybody who they hire a chance because they're not Dave Gettleman and they're going outside the organization. And some of these guys do have some pretty strong resumes. Like Adam Peters, I saw something about Adam Peters that he really was the guy who pushed the Niners to take Trey Lance, who I know Lance has not been the best his rookie year, but we'll see how he looks next year, Trey Lance. I really like Trey Lance coming out. And I feel like he's a guy who's not afraid to take big swings.
I was going to say Adam Peters might be my number 4 on this list. I've also heard great things about him. It seems like he's well respected around the league.
A lot of people like him.
So Adam Peters is probably in that same range to me as Joe Hortz. I do think the top 2 guys right now though are Schoen and Ryan Poles. Head coaching candidates. We kind of we gave a list of 4 that we were head over heels for. Yeah, but we'll list them again. This is not.
I think we have the same 4.
It's the same 4,
order, but at least the same 4.
It's not the same order, but so not in any order. But Doug Peterson, Jim Harbaugh, Kellen Moore, Byron Leftwich, are the 4 candidates that we really like.
Harbaugh's my number 1. I think Peterson's your number 1.
Yep.
Peters is my number 2.
Harbaugh is probably like my number 3 or 4, but.
Yeah, I get the criticism of Jim Harbaugh. I understand it, but I mean the dude is just he does find a way to win everywhere he goes. And I know Michigan, it hasn't always been the best up there, but I think the Big Ten has some pretty big recruiting disadvantages. I've been to Ann Arbor. I think that's a tough sell saying, "Hey, come and live in Ann Arbor," when you can go play in an SEC school with better weather. In just a better city.
Gonna stop your Harbaugh rant, but some other questions popping up here. Nick asked if Poles comes, does he bring Bieniemy as head coach? That's the straight line link, right? Yes, yeah. I think it's possible that Bieniemy is his head coaching choice. I think it's possible that he interviews a lot of people and he has other connections in the league because these guys do, and there's someone else that he likes. Someone said...
You know what it is? I think as human beings, we don't do very well with nuance. And I think it's easier for people to just be like, oh, well, they're both on Kansas City. Who knows? They might hate each other. I doubt that's the case.
But they might.
But, you never know. You don't know what their relationship is like. So, yeah.
Michael King said no Eric Bieniemy. We talked about Eric Bieniemy quite a bit. He's not a cartwheel guy. We're not super happy if Eric Bieniemy is the head coach, but we're not mad. I will 100% give Eric Bieniemy every chance possible to be the head coach. I think he could be a good head coach. He's just not in our top 4 guys.
We've officially reached this point, Matt, where Clinton, and I know a couple Giants fans have definitely said this.
Oh, Eli?
What about Eli Manning?
Guys, no. Eli Manning's no interest in coaching.
We love Eli. Obviously, we love Eli, but let's not do that. Because here's the deal. Do you want to be like the Broncos? Like, I think a lot of Broncos fans, I don't think they hate John Elway, but he was not a good GM for them for a while. Aside from getting Peyton Manning to come there, Peyton Manning basically gave him a lot of life there, I think, and a lot of leash. But John Elway was not a very good GM.
No, he wasn't. He was not. Someone brought up the fact that with the Ravens guy, I'm assuming they mean Joe Hortz, that he'll probably bring in Wink Martindale. Again, that's an easy line to draw. It's an easy line to draw. Yeah. We don't necessarily know that that's the case. Do you know
which top GM candidates? Do you know what Jordy asked? Do you know which top GM candidates on the Giants list are interviewing with other franchises? I know Schoen is going to probably get everyone. He's probably going to get interviewed by everybody who has an opening.
Dan, if you want to go ahead and start talking about Nathaniel Hackett, which is the next question, I am going to look up a GM tracker, and I'll do a quick...
Absolutely. I gotcha. So Nathaniel Hackett, obviously an interesting case here. He's pretty young. He's only 42. But as Matt alluded to earlier, Nathaniel Hackett has never called plays. All right? Nathaniel Hackett has never called plays. That's a red flag to me. That's a red flag to me. All right? So I would say to me he's got to start calling plays first. Then maybe we can see how he is as a head coach. Because if he's never called plays, how do you know what type of flow he has for the game?
So the Bears have have we been calling him Joe Schoen? His name is Jeff, or is PFF?
No, it's
wrong?
Joe Schoen.
So PFF is just
PFF's
wrong.
wrong.
I was like, wait, what? I'm like, we did not get this wrong because I've been hyping this guy for a while. The Bears are interviewing Joe Schoen. I'm looking here. Chicago, I don't think is looking at anyone else that the Giants are. I want to say I saw earlier that they were looking at Adam Peters as well.
Joe Schoen looks like by his pictures that he like exudes confidence. He kind of looks like if Ryan Reynolds got like hit by a bus. You know what I'm saying? But not like a bad way.
You know what's very odd to me, Dan? I don't know if the Vikings have reached out to like anyone.
Yeah, maybe the Vikings are just gonna not have a GM. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're not publicly say. I mean, they're gonna have a GM. I don't think the
No, they've already fired Spielman. So
right, but I'm saying like I don't think the owner is just gonna step in.
I'm just saying like I haven't seen any like they're trying to hire this person. Ed Dodds is on the Bears list, so he is accepting interviews this cycle. It makes sense if he likes Justin Fields that he'd go to Chicago.
Yeah, it would.
I think Adam
and
Peters.
That's the thing.
I think Adam Peters and Joe Schoen are the only two guys that are linked up with other teams. It's again, you have to remember, there's not a lot of teams looking for a GM. It's the Giants, it's the Bears, and it's the Vikings. Is there anyone else? Am I missing someone?
No, that's it. So in theory, I mean, the Giants should be able to get one of their 9 guys on their list.
Yeah.
And if not, have no fear, Giants fans. They'll just promote Kevin Abrams. What if that was the plan all along, Matt?
It's not.
See, we tried. No, I'm just kidding. I know. I'm just kidding. Listen, maybe John Mara's turned over a new leaf. Maybe the empty parking lots, maybe the booing multiple times of him in public, which he was probably furious about.
It was not Adam Peters. It was Rand Carthon for the Bears. So it's Rand Carthon and Joe Schoen are the two guys that the Bears and the Giants have the same. The Vikings have not requested to interview anyone yet.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, man.
That's weird.
That's pretty wild. So, yeah, dude. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting week. Now, dude, this week just got, when I mean 20 times more interesting, Matt. 20 times more interesting.
Yep, it did. You want to sit here and take some more questions though, Dan? There's some really good ones in here. There's some really good ones in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is Danny Dimes' injury career ending? No. Rapid fire that.
No. I think what's going to end Daniel Jones's career is him being bad at quarterback.
Yeah. He'll be a nice backup somewhere. What do you guys think about the Tampa defensive coach as our head coach? So, guys, I think it's really hard to ask Todd Bowles, who was scorched by the New York media, to come back into New York.
Yeah.
That's not a healthy situation. It's not a healthy situation at all.
That's not a healthy situation. Did we touch on Kellen Moore? Yes, Dylan. We both love Kellen Moore.
Yep.
We would both love Kellen Moore to be hired.
Someone brought up about how much they hate Doug Peterson and how ugly things got there. I want to preface this by saying that Howie Roseman is on his 4th head coach. So
Howie Roseman's the problem in Philadelphia.
Yeah, when you go through 4 head coaches, he fired Andy Reid. Okay, he fired Andy Reid to hire Chip Kelly. So let's be real here. That's a major downgrade. And then he hired Doug Peterson. They won a Super Bowl together. Their relationship fell apart. And now he's on Nick Sirianni. He's gone through 4 head coaches. That says more about Howie Roseman than it does about Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
That's just how things go.
Absolutely. Matt, this is a really good question from Marion here. What's the best GM opening right now in your opinion? This is a really good question.
If you think that Justin Fields is a franchise quarterback, it's the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Because they have the quarterback. You don't have a first-round pick this year, but you have the quarterback in place, and that is the hardest thing to find. So if you are a GM candidate who believes in Justin Fields, absolutely. And then
100%.
obviously you get that. You'll have input on hiring the Bears the next head coach for the Bears as well. Here's the other thing I'm going to say: if you don't believe in Justin Fields, then clearly you're not even going to be an option for Chicago.
Yeah.
In which
Chicago's
case,
kind of stuck with Fields.
In which
for at least
case,
the next few years.
I do think now that I guess the other thing I could sit here and say is that if you're a candidate where you want to draft your own quarterback no matter what, which a lot of candidates do want to do that, they don't want to be stuck with someone else's guy, then possibly the Giants would be your favorite. But I mean, come on, if you believe in Justin Fields, then it's the Bears.
That's the Bears, 100%. And if you don't, I would say they're all.
Well, there's only two other jobs.
I'd say the Giants.
And I do think it's the Giants.
Yeah, because for a lot of reasons. First off, Minnesota, that's an aging team, right? Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's not it. He's not going to win you a Super Bowl there at this point. He's, 34, I believe, now? He's getting up there in age. There's a whole – I think the Vikings fan base – he's 33. But the Vikings fan base is very divided on Kirk Cousins. They're all really, aside from Justin Jefferson, their best skill position players are old. Dalvin Cook is old. Adam Thielen is old. Their defense is old. Harrison Smith is old. Like, it's an old team that I think you're going to have to. I don't even think they've demolished the house yet.
No, they haven't.
I think that's by far the worst opening in this cycle.
And then, obviously, if you're the Giants, you have a clean slate. The Giants, I understand a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, we have no cap next year. If you're the GM, it's not about next year. It's about 2023, 2024, and beyond that. Most of the Giants' contracts you can get out of after 2022. There's a plethora of cap space in 2023 available, a plethora of picks in this next draft. I mean, you could start building the foundation in 2022, knowing that in 2023 you can really, start putting the house up and, obviously, potentially, finish this thing off in 2024 and beyond.
The Giants have 3 picks this year in the top 81.
Yep.
So as far as I'm concerned, Matt,
3 in the top 81.
In the top 81. 3 in the, I'm sorry, 5. Sorry, I definitely read that wrong. 5 picks in the top 81.
It's quite a bit.
5 picks in the top 81. So if you play your cards right there, that's 3 starters right there. If you play your cards right, between those 5 picks, you should get at minimum 3 starters if you draft correctly.
Yep.
You're not going to hit on every pick. I get that. You're not going to hit on every pick.
And I also want to preface this by saying,
if you hit a 60% clip, you're going to be good.
I think it's an attractive job, and I don't think that's necessarily a biased take. It sounds like the Giants are ready to do things the right way, usher in a brand new era. Minnesota isn't a bad job. It's just a matter of the fact that, you are stuck with Kirk Cousins for another year, and then what do you do after that? You don't have a quarterback.
Yeah. The thing is with Minnesota, next year, you're right. They're probably going to roll with a lot of their same players, I would think. They're probably going to finish about the same 7-9, and then after that, you're going to have to tear the house down. You have to start the rebuilding there. So you're at any given point, you're at least a year behind where the Giants are because they're not Super Bowl contenders. The Vikings next year.
No.
The Vikings, they're tapped out, so they're kind of in limbo maybe for a year, and then they're completely stuck.
And then do you want to
rebuilding at that point?
Do you want to make the decision of I'm going to sign at this point, a 34-year-old Kirk Cousins to a contract extension and build a team around Kirk Cousins for the next 3 or 4 years and try to win one with Kirk Cousins? It's difficult to be in that spot.
It is brutal, and that's why I think it's the worst job. But the Bears, you have Fields. You could at least say you're the GM with Chicago. I mean, they gave Ryan Pace a lot of time there. He drafted Trubisky, and they still let him go back and pick the next quarterback, right? But the Bears, you could say, hey, I didn't take Fields if Fields doesn't pan out.
And I also,
you got time.
This is also another reason why it was so important the Giants completely cleaned house, is because guess what? The Bears let someone else make the most important decision in their franchise with Justin Fields. So, that really does suck. The fact that the Joe Judge is now gone, he's fired. It means that this next GM and this next head coach can make all their decisions together. Everything can be aligned properly, perfected properly. And in a very important offseason where you have a lot of high draft picks, you can make those draft picks correctly and start building towards a better future.
Yep, for sure. We'll take a couple more questions here.
This is the Build Back Better New York Giants. I thought you would appreciate that.
That's funny. We've had a couple Brian Flores comments. Again, I think we've kind of both said we'd be pretty neutral, I think, on him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super happy. I'm not. I'm gonna go ahead and say this, Dan. With how Brian Flores treated Tua last year, I really wonder if he ever really wanted Tua in the first place.
He didn't. He didn't want Tua, and that's why he's not there.
But like I'm saying, like when they hired Tua, I'm starting to think that, there were people in the building in Miami that wanted Herbert. There were people in the building that wanted Tua. He wanted Herbert. GM wanted Tua.
Yeah, and the people who wanted Tua were wrong. And it sucks to be wrong. Because that's like going to be, when you see Justin Herbert as a Super Bowl contender, I think once that situation in LA gets better, I love Brandon Staley. I know everybody's been dragging his name through the mud this whole week. But that's a team I think they're going to be legit contenders.
This is a report back from September that Brian Flores preferred to draft Justin Herbert over Tua. I think that give credit where credit's due. He wanted the right quarterback. It makes things really difficult on a coach if you don't believe in the quarterback. And I don't think he believed in Tua. I would not be upset with Brian Flores, but I would not be thrilled with Brian Flores. That's just how it is. That's the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't upset with Joe Judge, guys. So, we were upset that they didn't fire Dave Gettleman. But we're going to give these next two guys a chance.
I think there's just a little bit more of a wiggle room because this is a brand new regime. And because things are so bad, they're going to need time. And as long as they don't display tendencies of making things worse, and by making things worse, an example of how you make things worse is, for example, sign your best offensive player to a $90 million contract, then trade him, crippling your cap the next year. That is a franchise-altering move that you can't make. So have a plan. At least have the plan be apparent every single time you make a move. You shouldn't be this shooting from the hip. We're rebuilding, but let's sign a 30-year-old Golden Tate. I don't want to see that.
We're rebuilding, but let's go sign Jonathan Stewart.
Right. Who hasn't lost a step, by the way.
We're rebuilding, but we're going to keep a 38-year-old quarterback. There are...
Yeah.
And that's kind of where things are at with it. I don't know, Dan. I'm happy, right? I'm wearing this proudly. I'm wearing the Giants proudly.
Yeah, me too.
It's going to be a very exciting next 2 weeks. I think it'll be about 2 weeks from now. We'll probably have the head coach and the GM in place. I think 7 to 10 days for the GM, another 7 to 10 days for the head coach potentially. So, it might not be official.
We'll have a lot of press conferences. I hope that this guy. I kind of hope the coach. I don't want to say has a bad press conference, but I want people to judge him for what he does on the field, not for the things that he says in his opening press conference.
Dan, there's a chance. There's a chance. Like I said, the end of January, we'll have everything will be settled. It's going to be a fun next 2-3 weeks, and we'll be here the entire way.
Yeah. But just a couple things really quickly, couple thoughts that I had before we leave. And these are just completely random thoughts. The first thought is somebody going to let Dave Gettleman go to the Senior Bowl this year? No. Are they going to is he going to have to sneak in? Is he just going to have to sneak in through the back and just be like, Oh, I fell in love with this guy at the Senior Bowl.
Jim Nagy. Jim Nagy said something about fired GMs texting him about the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, it was Dave Gettleman. I saw that, and it was Dave Gettleman.
About bringing their teams to mobile in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just because they wanted their fired GMs wanted to keep the people who were potentially on their staff there. Like what? Dave Gettleman. I mean, if it's not
Dave Gettleman,
if it's not Gettleman, then obviously it's Spielman and Pace. Which, if we're being honest, that does make more sense.
Yep.
But
yeah, for sure. And then I got one more closing thought tonight, and I just want to emphasize this because I think it gets lost in all this. I don't think Joe Judge is a bad guy, and I want that emphasized. I feel like Joe Judge bit off more than he could chew. He's a special teams coach, coaching in the biggest market in North America, on a team that, quite frankly, was put together very poorly. He did not inherit the best situation. He didn't inherit a good quarterback. Granted, he didn't make things better, but I really hope this isn't like Ben McAdoo. Like, I hope Ben McAdoo never gets another shot ever again. But I hope Joe Judge at least eventually gets to a point where he can coach a college team. That's where I think he belongs, where that culture stuff works. And I hope Joe Judge can have a good career in football. He's only 40. I'm not close to 40 really by any means. I'm still in my 20s. But I feel like having my dreams crushed by 40 would suck. So I hope for Joe Judge's sake that he's able to rebound and find another job in football. And learn from his very many mistakes that he made here. Because I don't think he's a bad person. So that's kind of my closing thought of the evening here.
My closing thought is we told you 2 years ago that this is where the team would be when they didn't fire Dave Gettleman 2 years ago, and that's where they're at. That's where they're at.
And we're right. We were right.
That's not meant to be a brag. I'm not trying to come off like
I'll
that.
brag.
The truth of the matter is
I'll come off like
the truth of the matter.
We got a lot of hate for saying that. A lot.
The truth of the matter is that the fact that, they kept Dave Gettleman 2 years ago. They shouldn't have. And Joe Judge took a job here knowing that, the time period to turn things around was going to be short. Things got arguably worse than they ever have been over the last 5 years. I agree with you. I don't think anyone sits here and says, Joe Judge is a bad guy. And no one sits here and says the same thing about Pat Shurmur, right? Pat Shurmur's a bad guy. But he's just not head coach material. Maybe he will be in 5 years. I don't know. Maybe it was just too soon. But in terms of X's and O's, he's just not there yet.
Yep. And listen, at the end of the day, this is truly what I hope, Matt, and I think this is the perfect place to end on. I sincerely hope the Giants hire a general manager and a head coach who is more correct than us. We are two idiots with a blog. I don't want to be more correct than a professional NFL general manager of my favorite team. So hopefully these guys are.
And as we sit here and say this, and a lot of you are going to be like, oh, blah, 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 you guys aren't. We were.
No, we were right. We were more right.
Over the last 4 years.
4 years.
And
we got the receipts.
I was going to say, over the last 4 years, no one wanted to take Saquon. They took Saquon. Everyone wanted to trade back. Everyone wanted to take Josh Allen. No one wanted to take Daniel Jones. Took Daniel Jones. We loved the Andrew Thomas pick, and guess what? Andrew Thomas is good. I literally went.
We love the McKinney pick. He's good too.
I know. I literally went back a couple of years ago to what I wrote about Nate Solder, about how he would never be worth the money. Being on the nose, it's been very telling that the moves have been bad over the last couple of years, and you hope that the next GM is smarter than a couple of nobodies that
couple of guys
the camera.
Yes, who we're not very smart, but we try.
No, all right? I disagree with that. We're two smart guys.
Yeah,
I'm very smart.
All right, we are smart, but we're not professional football talent evaluators.
No, we're not.
We are two Giants fans.
Yes.
Who made a page as a hobby 10 years ago, and for some reason people enjoy it. And thank you for enjoying it. We really appreciate you guys liking it because it means a lot. It's a really good way for us. And next year we're going to do some more stuff with the fans, we already said. So we got some fun ideas planned, fun games and stuff like that planned. That we're going to go to road games I think mostly. But never know. Maybe now that Gettleman's gone, I'll want to go to the toilet. That is MetLife Stadium. So,
point being, Dan, is today, John Mara stole yesterday from us. Today we can rejoice. Yeah. The house is clean. How do you want to decorate it? Let's find out.
Ooh.
We're excited. We're excited. This is,
I love it, baby.
This is, for all of you guys that are like, oh, you guys are so pessimistic. You guys are so awful. You're about to see a whole different version of us. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Because listen, if we get me like a Joe Schoen ticket in this house, you're about to see Tampa Bay Lightning Dan. And Tampa Bay Lightning Dan is the most positive fan on the planet. You're about to see a whole new league.
I'm just saying that you guys are about to see a different version of this page. If some competent moves can start being made.
Yeah. And this is a page. This is the page we've wanted to be for years.
Yep.
So if we can get behind and we could be, the positive fans, and because listen, we both said we went to the Tampa game. We said we had such a great time with the Giants fans at that game. We got lucky. We not accidentally, but there were a lot of Giants fans there. But we sat next to the Giants fans, and we were, the Riley Dixon chants every time he was punting. We had a great time. And so we want to celebrate wins though. We don't want to be the butt of the league anymore. And we're definitely going to get out there.
It's hard. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I'm going to go ahead and say this. It is difficult to talk about the Giants when year in and year out it's the same crappy team, and they're out of it by October, and there is no hope going forward. And that's how things have been. It's really hard to do that. And we're both we've messaged back and forth after Judge got fired. We're both very excited of the potential of the team moving forward. John Mara could still screw this up somehow. Like I'm still like I'm like waiting for him to be like JK Kevin Abrams is the GM or something. But
we failed the search, Kevin Abrams.
It seems like things are going in the right direction. And we're at least going to do things the right way. We have to pick the right people, but at least we're going to be. The process is now sound. It's just a matter of picking the right people in order to start moving the wheels forward. So I'm excited. Yeah. You're excited. This is a great day, Giants fans. If you're happy, you should be happy. Hopefully things are much brighter.
And Matt, let's end this thing with "Let's go Giants, baby."
Yeah, you know what? Let's go Giants.
It's been a long time since I've said that, and my face is actually smiling.
So
it hasn't been
I have been saying at the end of our pregame shows "Let's go Giants," but it's been "Let's go Giants." This is a "Let's go Giants."
This is a genuine "Let's go Giants." Let's get this team back, baby. We deserve it. It's been a long, long time.
Before we finish this off, one final thought. Okay.
All right.
Last thought. One final thought. Just because the Dave Gettleman era is over does not mean we're gonna be able to stop talking about it. So I know people are gonna be like, "Why are you talking about this?" Dave Gettleman and his mistakes are going to carry into the next probably 2 years, potentially. I'd say 2 years. So realize that Gettleman and Judge are gone. It's still going to be a talking point. Saquon Barkley's still on the team. Daniel Jones is still on the team. Dexter Lawrence is still on the team. For now. It's true. The cap is still shot. Kenny Galladay's $18 million a year is still here. Those things are still there.
They're going to cut Jones and Barkley. I can't wait. Eventually.
I was gonna say it'd be real fun to see Joe Schoen, who we know they don't value running backs at all in Buffalo. Just say you want a late third round pick for Saquon? See ya. But we're gonna end the show. Let's end it on that. Let's go Giants.
Yeah. All right. Let's go Giants.